Hello, wonderful. This is Sarah, and I'm here with Dr. Debi Silber, and she is the founder of the Post-Betrayal Transformation Institute. And I am guessing you're like in your car or in your shower going like, So my guess is you're going to love this interview. Hello, Debbie. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Oh, awesome. So betrayal, toxic relationships. It's all these like super heavy topics that I feel like generations previous to us kind of hid these topics, right?
They weren't as comfortable speaking
Mhm.
about them. And here's the thing with betrayal too. It's so we feel if we've been betrayed by a family member, partner, friend,
Mhm.
coworker, self, we're so embarrassed. We're so ashamed. Meanwhile, someone did something, and we're the ones.
Yeah.
We're embarrassed and ashamed. But the more we speak about it, the more we realize we're not alone, we're not crazy, and we can heal from
Mhm.
all of it.
And it's important to heal from all of it, right? Because I think if we've been betrayed, we kind of try to put it in this little box like, okay, I'm just going to stuff it down and it won't affect anything else. But it does. It affects our health. It affects our workplace. Is that what you found?
Oh yeah. You know what? I can spot an unhealed betrayal a mile away.
Mm,
I see it in health, work, relationships. Like, for example, I'll see it in relationships in one of two ways. The first way is repeat betrayals.
yeah.
If there's a repeat betrayal, that's an unhealed betrayal. You keep getting these opportunities in the form of people to teach you a
Mm,
profound lesson. Not that you're at fault for the betrayals, but there's a really big lesson you're meant to learn. And until and
mhm.
unless you do, you'll keep getting opportunities to learn that. Like maybe you need to learn you are lovable, worthy, and deserving. You need better boundaries in place, whatever it is for you. The other way I'll see it in relationships is when someone puts that big wall up. They're like, nope, been there, done that, not doing that again. And they think it's coming from a place of strength. It's not, it's fear. So
Mhm.
we'll see it that way in relationships, in health. I see the people going to the most well-meaning, amazing doctors, coaches,
Right.
healers, therapists to manage a stress-related symptom, illness, condition, disease. At the root of it is an unhealed betrayal. We see it at work too. People want to ask for that raise or promotion. They deserve it, but their confidence was shattered. So they don't have the confidence to ask, or they want to be a team player, collaborative partner, right? But the person they trusted the most proved untrustworthy. How can they trust that other person? Shows up everywhere.
And do you also see it in hypervigilance?
Oh, absolutely. I did a study, and here, let me just back up. No one studies betrayal because you're like, I like the topic of betrayal. I'm going to study that in the history of never. No, this is actually my 30th year in business. So it was health, mindset, personal development. And then I had my own really powerful and painful betrayal from my family. Thought I did everything I needed to heal right there. More lessons to learn, apparently. Happened again, this time my husband. So anybody who's been through it, you're blindsided, you're devastated, you're shocked. So got him out of the house, and I was like, you know what? What's common to these two experiences besides me, right? And I realized boundaries were always getting crossed, never took my own needs seriously. So I was like, that's it. I'm enrolling in a PhD program. And it was in transpersonal psychology, psychology of
Mhm.
transformation and human potential. And here I was, 4 kids, 6 dogs, a thriving business. I didn't know how I was going to pay for it, how I was going to do it, but something drastic had to change. Anyway, and I'm going to get to the answer to your question, by the way. So,
You're doing just fine. Yes. And I want to point out something drastic had to change. And I know you see women, I see women, and they say, oh, I'm unhappy with all these things. And then I say, something drastic needs to change. And then they say, but it's not convenient. But I have 4 kids, but I don't know how I'm going to pay for it, but I don't know how to. And so I really, since you paused at that second of your story, I want to emphasize that piece of your story, and the changes I had in my own life. People, when you hear their success stories, it's hardly ever convenient. I mean, they think in their head, it's like, well, it must have been easier for you. No, I must have wanted it more.
it's
I
the
must have wanted
hardest
it
thing
more.
ever. Exactly. It's the
Yeah.
hardest thing ever. It's never convenient. But there's that saying, if nothing changes, nothing changes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So something drastic has to change, or you're going to keep having the same experiences. The faces change, but it's the same thing. And that's exactly why. So
Mhm.
the drastic thing I did was enroll in this program. And then I do this study on betrayal, what holds us back, what helps us heal, and what happens to us physically, mentally, and emotionally when the people closest to us lie, cheat, and deceive. That study led to 3 groundbreaking discoveries, which changed my health, my business, my work, my life. Now, to get to the answer to your question, what about hypervigilance? One of the discoveries was that there's actually this collection of symptoms, physical, mental, and emotional, so common to betrayal, it's known as post-betrayal syndrome. And we've had easily over 30,000 people at this point take our post-betrayal syndrome quiz on our site to see to what extent people are struggling. Every few months, I pull the stats. Do you want me to share some of the
I
stats?
would love that.
Yeah.
I'm a research nerd. I'm like,
Yeah,
yes,
you're
please.
gonna love this. It's mind blowing, and
Yeah.
you will see why. Ready? This is out of, let's say, 30,000 people. Every age has been represented. Almost every country has been represented. 78% constantly revisit their experience. 81% feel a loss of personal power. Here's the answer to your question. 80% are hypervigilant. I mean, that's exhausting, right? Could you
Mhm.
imagine? 94% deal with painful triggers, and those triggers can take you down. They're brutal. Now, here are the most common physical symptoms. 71% have low energy. 68% have sleep issues. 63% extreme fatigue. That's your adrenals crashing right there.
Mhm.
47% have weight changes. So in the beginning, maybe you can't hold food down. Later on, you're
Yeah.
using food for comfort, right? And 45% have digestive issues. That's anything from IBS, Crohn's, constipation, diarrhea, diverticulitis, you name it. The most common mental symptoms. 78% are overwhelmed, 70% walking around in a state of disbelief, 68% unable to focus, 64% are in shock, 62% are unable to concentrate. So imagine you can't concentrate, you're exhausted, you have a gut issue, and like you're supposed to raise your kids and go to work. That's not even the emotional. 88% extreme sadness, 83% anger. And when you bounce back and forth between
Yeah.
those two, that's exhausting. 82% feel hurt, 80% have anxiety, 79% are stressed. A few more. This is why I wrote the book, Trust Again. Ready? 84% have an inability to trust. I
Mhm.
mean, it's just so sad. 67% prevent themselves from forming deep relationships because they're afraid of being hurt again. 82% find it hard to move forward. 90% want to move forward, but they don't know how.
Mhm.
You know, what's so interesting to that quiz also is we've all heard time heals all wounds. I have the proof that's not true.
No, I agree.
Yeah, when it comes to betrayal, there's a question that says, is there anything else you'd like to share? And people write things like, my betrayal happened 35 years ago. I'm
Yeah.
unwilling to trust again. My betrayal happened 10 years ago. Feels like it happened yesterday. So we know when it comes to betrayal, it needs a very different protocol.
Mhm. So one of my favorite responses, because I'll sometimes have people say, I think I have trust issues. And I said, okay, you have trust issues. I said, so were you around someone who was really good, kind, loving, giving, and forgiving, and then you just blew it up because you were looking for things that were wrong with them? And they were like, no, I had someone betray me. And I said, that's not the same thing as a trust issue. That's you were with someone who was untrustworthy. You had an experience that was untrustworthy.
Mhm.
And it's a little flip on its head, but it is different, right?
You know, trust is it goes with betrayal. Trust is so foundational, and that's why betrayal is a very different type of crisis, because when when you think about it, this is the person, or these are the people who gave you a sense of safety and security. You trusted this person. So when this is the person, or these are the people, to shatter that sense of safety and security, it's devastating. And
Mm-hmm.
trust takes a while to build. I
Mm-hmm.
look at trust like a brick wall. Every opportunity that person has to show that they're trustworthy is like a brick in the brick wall, right? And the only way I
Mm-hmm.
know of it getting built is brick by brick by brick, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then now
I want to
imagine.
slow you down right there.
Yeah.
Yes. And sometimes I hear people, they do some of their own healing work and then they go into entering new relationships with people.
Mhm.
Okay. And I want everyone to hear Debi say the only way to build trust is brick by brick by brick. Because I think sometimes people say, what's a list of red flags, or what's this? And of course there are red flags that we need to notice, but we can't jump over that process of actually building trust brick by brick. You can't trust someone without knowing them. You can't know them without time passing. Now, you want to be wise as you watch the bricks and not ignore bad bricks. But I think sometimes people miss that.
They do. And a few things just to what you said. First of all, and I spell it out in Trust again, it's what we teach within the Institute, but there's a 4-step trust rebuilding process. And unless and until you do all 4 steps, it falls flat every time. I'm happy to teach that right here. And the last thing you want to do after getting out of a painful relationship is jumping into the next one.
Debbie, all my problems will be solved if I just find a better guy, right? Come on now. I shouldn't have to do anything to,
I mean, can you see my hands right here? I'm going to show you something you'll never forget, right? Okay. So here's what happened. We're dating somebody, we're married, whatever is going on right here. And then we break up, right? And then we're like, oh, this is so painful. I just want to be with somebody else. And we just do this. No, here's what you need to do. The only thing you're supposed to do after a breakup is get to your physical, mental, emotional, psychological, spiritual best. But here's what happens. If you meet someone right here, you do this and you're like, oh, but they're here, and you keep doing this, right? And you're like, whatever. But you're like, but you like it here. And then so you start getting frustrated, and then you're like, why can't they do this? Right? And then what happens is if you do the work, eventually you get this. Yeah. They're like, who are you? And you're like, ooh, I'm not the least bit interested in you. So your job and your only job is to do this. Now, a few things may happen. You may just go your separate ways because you completely and totally outgrew each other. This person can say, I better step up my game to meet the strength of this woman. Or you can't help but attract someone here. You're playing in a very different pool. So all your whole job is just to do this, period.
And if you're listening from the podcast, she's raising her hand. She's raising the bar. She's raising the situation. Yeah. Why don't you walk us through that 4-step trust process? That'd be awesome.
Yeah. So this is the thing. Trust gets so completely shattered in betrayal, and not just trust in your betrayer. We lose trust in ourselves because
absolutely.
We're like, yes. How did I not see? How did I not know? And then we lose trust in everybody else because we're like, I can't even trust myself. How in the world can I trust you? Right? So it shatters all of it. So that's why when the foundation of trust needs to be shattered, we have to start by building the very foundation. So we start by the most basic, no-brainer, obvious thing you can imagine. I'm talking like, will the sun rise? I don't know. Trust is so shattered. I don't even know if I can count on that. So you look out your window and you're like, is it, oh, sure enough, there it is. Can I trust it? I don't know. Check another couple of days until you know for sure, you know what, the sun's going to rise. That's your foundation upon which to stand. From there, and I'm not kidding, when that is rebuilt, and do not move forward until that is, the next step is you need to rebuild trust in your gut, in your intuition, in your higher wisdom, whatever you want to call it. So the way to do that is you want to get a felt sense of what trust feels like. Maybe it's 2 babies laughing. Maybe it's a dog wagging his or her tail, whatever that is. How does that make you feel? Open, expansive, good. Where do you feel it, right? Feel that. That's what trust feels like. And I can't tell you because it's different for everybody. Now, once you feel that, lock it in. Know what that feels like for you. Then you want to get a sense of what a lack of trust feels like. When someone was lying to you, D-Day, Discovery Day, whatever it is for you. And you want to get a real sense of how that feels in your body. Does it feel tight, closed, constricted? Where are you feeling it, right? That's what a lack of trust feels like for you. And now, as you move throughout your day, check in when you're dealing with anybody. Which one does this feel closer to? The 2 babies laughing, the person lying to me. Trust that. I had a mentor who said, our gut is like 10,000 times more perceptive than our mind. But who do we listen to?
Absolutely. There's a scene in Sherlock Holmes that's on Netflix. And he said something about his subconscious, which, but the same inner workings. And he said, by the time it goes to your mind, like your language centers, it's already had to filter through so much to figure out why did I have that experience? Why did I have that feeling? But by then, just like the brick by brick, you've had to get to know them. And you may be already locked in with them. You may already have a kid with them at that point. You may have already signed a contract with them. You may already go into business with them. I agree completely that it's that backup. How do I feel? Do I feel expanded? Do I feel constricted? Do I feel nervous? And that's, again, it's why it's so important to heal, because if you are stuck in an anxiety loop and everything feels scary, you never get to that place, right?
100%. And that's going to get me to the other discoveries too, but I want to finish this for you. So, okay. So now we have level 1, which is that foundation. And then level 2, which is learning to trust your gut again. And you can feel, if you have these 2 measures, you can kind of feel like almost like these invisible bodyguards, you feel a sense of safety and security building. When that's built, you go to the next level, and you have to learn to trust in yourself again, because betrayal shatters self-trust. So what you do with that is you give yourself little tasks, and then you do them. I'm going to drink that glass of water, and then you do. I'm going to make that phone call, and then you do. I will not call my ex, and then you don't. Whatever it is for you. And what you're doing is you're teaching yourself, my word is law. I'm trustworthy. If I say something, I mean it. So now think about it. You have a foundation, right? You're standing on solid ground again. You trust your gut. You trust yourself. Only from that place do you now cautiously, carefully begin to slowly trust in others. But what we do is we don't do any of the first 3, and we're just like, oh, this feels so bad. Let me just trust you again. There's no foundation. There's no self-trust. And that's why it falls flat.
And you use the term self-trust. And I describe the same thing when people say, how do I become more confident? And it's that same piece, because people there's nothing wrong with affirmations, Sarah, you are beautiful, you are smart, you're whatever. But in my own experience, the trust in myself is the confidence. And it's like, I am someone who shows up for myself. I picked up the glass of water and I drank it when I said I did. I said I was going to write a book, and I did. I said I was going to show up for my kids in a certain way, and I did. I said, that is true confidence. It's self-trust, and it's confidence in yourself way more than and I love meditation. I already did it today. I'm done. It's not that those things are bad. I just think we miss that self-trust piece in the conversation about confidence.
Exactly. Confidence is built by, exactly what you said, trusting in yourself. And also, here's something that may seem unfamiliar, right?
Yeah.
Or scary. Another word for scary, it really is just unfamiliar. And so you can back away from it or take it on. And then you do it, you look back and you're like, oh, look at me. That's how confidence is built, right? And
brick by brick, it's the same thing.
Oh, true. And since betrayal shatters confidence, it shatters confidence. There's that sense of rejection, abandonment, worthiness, belonging, trust. It's all shattered in betrayal. And that was actually part of the second discovery. I had been through death of a loved one. I had been through disease, and I was like, betrayal feels different for me, but I didn't want to assume. So I asked all my study participants, and I said, if you've been through other traumas besides betrayal, does it feel different for you? And everyone said it was so different. And here's why. Because it feels so intentional, we take it so personally. So the whole self has to be rebuilt. You have to rebuild from that sense of rejection and abandonment, confidence, belonging, worthiness, trust. So that type of healing needed its own name, which is now called post-betrayal transformation. So that's the complete and total rebuild of your life and yourself after an experience with betrayal.
That's interesting on the betrayal feeling different. And is it also from other people's experiences? So in my life, when it's been my own betrayal, it's also unsettling, because then people say, well, what did you do to make them blank, right? What did you do to make them betray you? If someone gets cancer, most of the time people don't say, what did you do to get cancer? What did you do to break your leg? We're nicer about it.
Right.
With other tragedies, we know as a society, my friend had a baby and she's not feeling well, and I know I take her food and then it's better, right? I know what to do. But betrayal, we don't know what to do when someone's betrayed.
And I'm going to share something here, and this is for everybody listening, watching. If you have to say this 100 million times, it's worth it. Ready? Even though it happened to you, it's not about you. This was someone else's lack, hole, missing piece. And they had a void that they were trying to fill. You are the unlikely recipient of their actions, right? You're paying the consequences for those actions, but it's not because of you. And that's something so hard, because the same thing could be the person had a lack and they chose alcohol, they chose drugs. But when they choose another, right? That's when it becomes personal. And that's where we really have to do that. We really have to do that work. And I'll also tell you, that's also why people, I mean, we see healing, and I'm talking about going from symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome through the 5 stages, that's the 3rd discovery, happy to talk about that, to that place of total and complete healing of post-betrayal transformation. They are the strongest people I've ever known. Because think about it, this is, you have rebuilt your life and yourself from the shattering from that person you trusted the most. That's huge. And rebuilding, this is the thing too, rebuilding is always a choice, whether you rebuild yourself and move on. That's what I did with my family. It wasn't an option to rebuild with them. Or if the situation lends itself, if you're willing, if you want to, you rebuild something entirely new. I'm talking brand spanking entirely new with the person who hurt you. That's what I did with my husband. So not long ago, as 2 totally different people, we married each other again. I never would have considered anything like that if I wasn't totally different. And for sure, if he wasn't totally different. You know, so and we teach how to know when it's safe in your best interest to do one or the other.
And again, it's not always just convenient, right? I mean, going back to that, I loved your 4 kids example and didn't know how you're going to pay for it, because I think our brains can play so many tricks. I hate the term comfort zone because it doesn't sound comfortable at all. When most people describe their comfort zone, it sounds terrible. You know, I was like, that's not comfortable. My life is comfortable. What you're describing is that you're describing my old life, which was not comfortable. I remember that, you know, and but that idea of when you get out of normal, it's not always convenient. There's going to be hoops you have to jump through. There's going to be obstacles. And I want people to get more afraid of staying where they are. People get so afraid of change, but it's like, but what if you stay here?
You know, I did 2 TEDx talks, and in the first one, are you stop sabotaging yourself? I say, when the pain of where you are becomes greater than the fear of the unknown,
right?
You jump. And it's so true. And it's, we think just because something is familiar, it's good. It's not. It's just familiar, just like everything else that wasn't familiar until it was. That doesn't mean it's good. But that fear, and this is why I see the worst relationships continuing, because they're so afraid of the complete and total death and destruction of the old. But unless there is that death and destruction of the old, you can't birth the new. So, you know, it's like, let's take that brick wall, right? It's totally, totally shattered. And people ask me all the time, can trust be repaired? I say no. Can it be rebuilt? Yeah. But how? The same way that trust was built the first time, brick by brick by brick. So in that case of the brick wall, if you are even remotely considering reconciliation, that takes the person who's been betrayed to be willing to watch the brick wall be rebuilt, and the person who shattered it to be a really good bricklayer, brick by brick.
That's a really important point. And my research hasn't been exactly the same as yours, but that's what I've seen too. And I really want to point out what Debi just said, because what I see women do is, oh my gosh, it's broken down. Here, let me rebuild it, and I'll plaster it together. And the person who burnt the brick wall down is kind of like, well, this is great. Now you're doing the work of the relationship again. This is wonderful. You talked a bit about how to know whether or not you should be allowing them to build trust. It's because they're building the wall that they tore down.
Well, that's one thing for sure. Yeah. And it would be exactly like you said. It would be as if, you know, because the person who's been betrayed is so sad and so fearful and worried about being alone or whatever else, they're like, oh, forget it. I'll build a brick wall. No. That's why it doesn't work. And there were actually 3 groups in the study who did not heal. And one group was the group that was numbing, avoiding, distracting. They were
Mhm.
like, this is way too painful. So they ran to the doctor and put them on mood stabilizers, anti-anxiety medications, or they were numbing in front of the TV, or, emotionally eating, whatever. And it may have been made the day a bit easier to get through, not without a price. The second group was the group where they just refused to accept their betrayal. They were like, they just had their story and they were sticking with it. And the third group, this was the group where the betrayer had no consequences. So it would be like the person who's, rebuilding the wall for the betrayer. So with this group, I only saw, and whether it was out of fear of breaking up a family,
Mhm.
religious reasons, that was a big one,
Mhm.
financial fear, whatever it was, they just did everything they could to put it behind them. I saw two things: a further deterioration of the relationship, and two, this group was the most physically sick.
Absolutely.
The
Absolutely.
broken heart can't handle that.
If your nervous system is telling you something's wrong and your new goal becomes to turn off your nervous system, there's only a world of problems that come from that.
Exactly. That's it. So that's where all these
Mm.
symptoms are coming from,
Yeah.
the post-betrayal syndrome symptoms. And but I get it. There's that fear, but that fear is keeping you stuck just because. And here's the thing, they're looking at it, well, I don't want to be the one to cause, chaos in my family. Well,
Yeah.
hello, you weren't the one who did the betraying. That's
Right.
that's where the chaos got caused. You're just
Right.
responding and choosing to live authentically and making yourself matter too.
Making yourself matter too. I had someone one time, they said, to some people, love means you no longer count.
Ah,
Isn't that terrible? But it's so, you see it. And, especially from a religious background, you can see that, like, well, love means I don't matter. Love means my opinion doesn't count. Love means only sacrifice. And I love to flip it on them and saying, so love means helping other people become more selfish. Is that what I'm getting from you? And they're like, no, I don't want to help other people become more selfish. I was like, what do you think it is? Like,
yeah.
you're not taking turns in any way. It's always their turn. It's always to their advantage.
Yeah, and I asked, it's sort of a similar question, and I'll say, like, in a relationship, how, if on a percentage, 0 to 100, how much are you giving? 80%. How much are they giving?
Mhm.
20? Like, why
Mhm.
is that okay? Why is
Mhm.
that okay? If
Mhm.
you feel healthy, whole, happy, you have more to give. It's
Mhm.
not selfish, it's self-preservation.
Mm.
And I see
Mm.
this especially with moms. I hate to
Yeah.
say it. We're trained to give to everybody else. And if and when there's any time left, that's the time for your own self-care. Well, think about it. By the time you're done, like, I know in my case, that's why I burned out so many times. 4 kids, 6 dogs, a thriving business. When was there going to be time?
Mhm.
But when you do make that time, you're writing the script for how others teach you. You're showing
Mhm.
yourself you matter, so other people know you matter.
Mhm.
And most importantly, you're teaching yourself that you matter.
So I was at a baseball event, Mother's Day, and I was talking. I basically said I was really frustrated. They had a Mother's Day tournament. I said, I think this is really disrespectful to mothers that the weekend of baseball there was a Mother's Day tournament. And I think I'm about to go like on a rampage about it because it was so upsetting. And this other mom, she said, well, I don't mind. I don't, tomorrow doesn't have to be special. I'm just happy to be at my son's baseball tournament. I don't have to have anything for me. And I was like, pity the woman who marries your son because you think you're teaching selflessness.
Mhm.
No, you're teaching selfishness. And I have a daughter and a son, and it's like I don't want to teach my daughter and lead her by example to say, right now you're important, but just know that at some point you no longer count. When
Ugh,
you get married, you don't count anymore. When you have kids, you don't count anymore.
no,
That is
no,
not the legacy I want to pass on.
not at all. Not at all.
Nor do I want my son to think that or think, oh, well, I count. My wife doesn't.
I know. And
Mess.
that's the thing. So it really takes a retraining, and it
Yeah.
starts with us. It starts with us. And it took my crash, and I've had many, right? But it took it to realize, wait a second, what am I doing? And now,
Mm-hmm.
we have this completely new family. It's like happens to be all the same people, but we're not. And
Mm.
it's even like a simple thing, like where I used to be so hard on myself. And I happened to just be such a driver, of just pushing myself. And I would be so hard on myself if I did something wrong, right? And I would berate myself. And then I decided after my betrayal, I'm like, you know what, everything's changing. So one of the things that changed was, it wasn't like I stopped doing things like I get lost wherever I go, whatever it is, but now it's all adorable. If I do things, it's just adorable. And the whole family has to go along with it. You can make up a whole different set of rules. Why do they have to be so, for everybody else to have what they need and so nothing for us? I don't agree with that. And it all changed. And it's been so much fun ever since.
Well, tell people where they can find more about you and your work.
Oh, thank you. Really, I really want everybody to take the post-betrayal syndrome quiz to see to what extent they're struggling. They can just find that at the PBT Institute, as in post-betrayal transformation, thepbtinstitute.com/quiz.
So if you had a minute that you could broadcast your voice to the entire world and teach people one thing that you think everyone should know, what would it be?
Yeah. You can heal from all of it. I'm living proof. And your biggest crisis reveals your greatest gift. I mean, think about it. I had a very powerful story. All the people, most important people in my life, all betrayed me. And I'd get sympathy from everybody I told it to. But instead, we're helping thousands and thousands of people through our certified coaches, through our institute, through our messages. So you owe it to yourself. You've been through the worst of it already. You owe it to yourself to create a much better story.
And I love that, because I think there's so much emphasis now on just tell your story, and people can get stuck in their story. So I admire people like you who have changed their story. So thank you so much for coming here and helping us on our journey to becoming toxic person proof.
Thank you.